After months and months of speculation, Hyundai finally confirmed the 2026 Ioniq 6 is canceled for the United States. There is a little asterisk there, and that is the 2026 Ioniq 6N is still going to be sold in the United States later this year. The problem, that's not a mass market car. It's going to be sold in very limited quantities, and it's going to be very expensive, probably $60,000 or more. While the 2025 Ioniq 6 currently starts in the low 40s here in the United States. So this is a real bummer, especially for me because my 2024 Ioniq 6 lease ends next month, and we don't really know what we're going to replace it with. I personally really like the refresh of the Ioniq 6, and that was more than likely going to be our next car, but I don't want a 6N. I'm not going to be going to the track or anything. It's just way too expensive and way too much power for what I want on a daily basis. So that's kind of out of the question. If you're up in the Great White North of Canada, rejoice because you guys are going to be getting the refreshed Ioniq 6 as a 2027 model year later this year, along with all the other cool EVs from Hyundai Kia Motors, like EV3, EV4, EV5, all these cool cars that we can't get in the US. Kia did cancel the EV6 for the new model year in Canada. It's kind of being replaced by the Kia EV5. So let's go ahead and read these statements from Hyundai. So on the US market going forward, our award-winning Ioniq 6 lineup will consist of the all-new Ioniq 6N. The high-performance electric sports sedan delivers truly thrilling, track-ready dynamics coupled with everyday usability. Ioniq 6N arrives later this year. In the meantime, 2025 Ioniq 6 sedans continue to be available at dealers alongside our award-winning and US-assembled Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 9 SUVs. Now here's a statement from Hyundai Canada. We are excited to confirm that the refreshed Ioniq 6 will be coming to Canada, introduced as a 2027 model year. This approach reflects Hyundai's commitment to advancing electric mobility and continuing to lead with Canada's most awarded EV lineup. We look forward to sharing more details on what's new closer to launch. So what might be some of the reasons why Hyundai has made this decision? Well, first and foremost, the Ioniq 6 has never been a sales leader in the US. I don't think it really has anywhere in the world compared to Ioniq 5. But it particularly has sold really poorly in the United States. Looking at sales figures from last year, you can see it was just a bloodbath. So Ioniq 5 sold closing in on 50,000 units. They sold just over 47,000, while Ioniq 6 only sold 10,478. And that is a decrease of 15% versus all of 2024, while for 2025, Ioniq 5 sales were up 6%. And that's despite the fact that the federal tax credit ended at the end of September. So Ioniq 6 only accounted for 20% of the sales versus Ioniq 5. And looking at the first couple months of 2026, it's not looking any better. In January, they only sold 344 Ioniq 6s versus over 2,000 Ioniq 5s. That is down 61% versus January of 2025. And then looking at February of 2026, they sold a measly 229 units versus 3,239 Ioniq 5s. Ioniq 6 numbers for February were down 77% versus this time last year. Year to date, sales are down 70% versus the first 2 months of 2025, while Ioniq 5 is up 14%. What's crazy is there are Ioniq 6s that have been sitting on dealer lots since the day they showed up. If you do a search on the evfinder.com and look for 2023 Ioniq 6s, there's almost 2023 Ioniq 6s within 500 miles of kind of my general area. And if you look at 2024, there's dozens there. And then looking at 2025, dozens and dozens and dozens more Ioniq 6s just sitting unsold. So it's rather unfortunate. It doesn't seem like they can sell them. So I don't even know what the dealers would do if they started getting 2026s in with all these ancient cars that have been collecting dust for 2+ years. So the Ioniq 5 continues to be their big sales leader here in the United States. So at this point, this really just kind of drives home why they are not bringing in the refresh, but one could argue that perhaps the refresh is needed to increase sales because it makes it into a more normal-looking sedan. It also makes it even more competitive with basically its only other competitor in the US, the Tesla Model 3. Remember Volkswagen's ID.7 that they announced several years ago? That got canceled. That never came to the US. Of course, there's some more expensive options like the Lucid Air, the Mercedes EQE, and the BMW i4, but those are all priced significantly higher than the Ioniq 6 or the Tesla Model 3. And what I think is the final nail in the coffin for the Ioniq 6 here is the fact that we now have tariffs of 25% on cars imported from Korea. The 2026 Ioniq 6 was not going to be built in the US, so it was subject to this new 25% tariff. And with that kind of markup, there's just nothing left for Hyundai to make any money on selling that car in the United States. It would basically be costing them thousands of dollars for every car that they import. So it's just not possible for it to remain competitive. They would have had to price it at probably starting over $50,000 to make up for that 25% tariff, and people aren't going to pay that. With this tariff in place, I honestly don't even really know how they can justify bringing the 6N here without significantly raising the price of that versus a competitor like the Ioniq 5N. So all in all, I'm feeling pretty down about this. Basically, Hyundai now only has 2 EVs in the US. The Kona Electric is canceled, so it's Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 9. Ioniq 9 also is selling pretty poorly, so who knows how long that's going to be in the market. The other elephant in the room is Kia EV6. That car has been canceled in Canada for the new model year, and their sales numbers here in the US have been dismal as well, selling like 25% of what Ioniq 5s are selling. So who knows? They haven't made any announcements about a 2026 Kia EV6 here in the US, even though it's being built here. There's still a chance that that car gets canceled as well. Genesis GV70 electrified and GV60 are not selling in any amount of volume. We're talking a few dozen units throughout this first couple months of this year. So it's basically like they don't even exist. So yeah, your options are starting to get pretty limited instead of expanding like they should. Plans to start selling Kia EV4 are canceled in the US. The EV9 GT canceled in the US. The electrified G80 canceled in the US, and now Ioniq 6 canceled in the US. And with all that being said, I'm starting to think about getting a different brand for our second car because I don't really want an Ioniq 9, I don't really want an EV9, and I don't want to get an EV6 if that's going to be discontinued immediately anyway. I plan on always having an Ioniq 5, but at this point, it might make sense to go ahead and get something from a different brand and just explore what's out there. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I know a lot of you don't really care that the Ioniq 6 is canceled because you thought it was an ugly car, but it's one less option to compete on the market. Stay tuned because next month I'll be doing kind of my final review of our 2024 Ioniq 6. And just kind of wrapping that up before we get rid of it. If you guys liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. Check out my store at ioniqguy.com for accessories for your Hyundai Ioniq 6, Ioniq 5, any eGMP platform vehicle. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.